I've gotten a lot of requests on my other Samsung videos to review the Galaxy A35, which is now available on their website here in the United States. Now, I want to talk about it for a bit because I'm not going to get the phone. And I'm not going to pass judgment on whether it's a good phone or a bad phone or not because I don't know, because I don't use it. I don't have it here, and that's not what I do. I am a bit confused as far as where it falls in the lineup. And unlike other times where I talk about, well, you can't compare this device to this device, we're just talking about a Samsung device. If you want a Samsung phone, the Samsung experience, there are other better options for less or the same money in the Samsung lineup. So it's not like going to another brand or like one of those cheap brands that I complain about from overseas or something like that. If you want the Samsung experience, there are options here that the company sells that make the A35 a bit confusing, especially at $400. This comes in at $350. Maybe it's a little less of a conversation. You got the A25 at $300. I do believe it's a step up from that. Performance-wise, build-wise, there's a couple reasons why you'd pick up an A35 over an A25, but that $100 gap brings a lot of other devices into play that Samsung still currently sells. So let's talk about it. Powered by the Exynos 1380. Same chipset that was in the Galaxy A54. 6.6-inch display, 1080p, 120 hertz. Gorilla Glass Victus Plus on the front, but plastic frame. So that kind of puts it in an area with the A54. Now, Samsung will still sell you an A54 for $450, which I think really makes no sense at this point. Amazon, link will be in the description, does help the channel. These are $325, $330. So you're getting the same power plant, the same 6 gigs of RAM, relatively the same build. You're not getting Gorilla Glass Victus on your A54, but you are getting glass front and back and a premium build, slightly smaller display, right? 6.4 inches over here on the A54. But I think this one, if you're getting that Exynos 1380 at this point, a year plus after it came out, there is the 1480, which we'll talk about in a moment. But if you're going for that power, if you're settling on that, $400 seems a bit steep. Yes, you're getting the extra year of support or whatever, but I do believe that the A54 is a better choice, $75 less than that. So that's one thing to consider. You still have the S23 FE, which bangs about at $600 on the Samsung website, but carrier deals bring that down to what? You get $400, $450 sometime, and you do get a pleasant experience on your S23 FE. You're absolutely getting more power out of the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 than you would out of the Exynos 1380. You're getting roughly the same battery performance, but a slightly better display, a little more colorful display if they're going with that new. And that's not a knock on the A35's display. That's just the way Samsung is doing it these days with the displays. The A55 has the same issue with that. So we'll if you want that punchier display, if you want kind of relatively the same size as your A54, so if you want the more pocketable device, you don't want that 6.6-inch display, which makes a difference. Someone asked me on a comment just recently, is there a pocketability thing or a feel in the hand? Yes. The 6.6-inch A55 feels significantly bigger. Has something to do with the build as well, the premium build, the construction, all the rest of it, but it feels significantly bigger than these two devices. So if that's something you're worried about, if you like those smaller devices, it's not going to be like a 6.1-inch display of a Pixel 6a, but it's smaller, it's easier in the hand, and it's a more pocketable device of the two, and then you kind of get like a bigger behemoth device. Now, here's the more confusing one. I understand they don't sell this overseas, and or they don't sell it in the United States, the A55. Now that makes more sense. Because I'm like, you got a weird gap in your lineup. You got an A54 that you're still selling for $450. You got an S23 FE that you're still selling for $600. The $450 for the A54 makes no sense anymore. The A55 you're not bringing here. It's $450. You're getting a much newer chipset, better battery life, better build, all the rest of it. So I'm like, why is this not coming to the United States? Well, because they had this phone that they were going to slot in there. They had the A35 that they were bringing to the U.S., that's got the Exynos 1380, 6 gigs of RAM, and they were going to go there. They're going to say the upgrades are, well, you get a bigger display. They're going to basically compare it as a step up from the A25, which it is. It's going to be better performance. The 1380 is going to beat the 1280, right? It's going to be a better display. Going to be bigger display. Going to be better build quality with that Gorilla Glass Victus Plus. So there are reasons why the A35 is justifiably more expensive than the A25. The problem becomes when you look at the rest of the Samsung lineup and you see this guy here. Now let's talk about the A55. Exynos 1480, significantly better on battery life. You're getting a more premium build. You're getting a beautiful display. You're getting the Gorilla Glass Victus Plus that you were on the other side. You're getting 8 gigs of RAM here instead of the 6 on the base of the A35. So there are some reasons why this is a significant upgrade from the A35, and you're talking a $50 difference. So if you're out there hunting for reasons about why the A55 didn't make it to the United States, I think they had the A35 ready to go. They looked at their lineup. They said, this is not going to cut it price-wise. You can't possibly sell that at $400 and have something like this at $450 because especially, carriers get a hold of this. The A35, the A25, the A15, those are going to be great carrier devices. You can already see they got T-Mobile and U.S. Cellular on their website. They don't have AT&T or Verizon, which was curious, but they got the other two. I'm wondering if that's a banned issue or not. They do sell it unlocked, and they don't have any warnings about compatibility. So I'm pretty sure it works across all the carriers here in the U.S., or else there'd be more to it than that. But kind of curious. But that's going to be one that you get for like $200, $150 with a 2 or 3 year commitment on those carriers, or T-Mobile will be the 2-year commitment. But that's like a $150 phone that you get. So I get why kind of you'd avoid bringing something like this when you know you could sell that phone. You know you're going to get money for it. You know it's a good enough performer. Look, the 1380 in my A54 is still a pretty good performer. Decent frames on games. Relatively smooth and snappy, running One UI 6.0. Lots to like about the 1380 still. My only problem really is that $400 price tag. Because when you're talking $450 for the 1480, which is a significant improvement, it is smoother, it is more power efficient, it doesn't heat up as much, which people have issue with. So I really kind of just am confused as to why the A35 kind of where it falls in the lineup. It just kind of seems like the U.S. version of what they would bring as the budget phone, but I don't understand why, because they already had an excellent budget phone in production that they could have brought to the United States. But I don't know, maybe this is a situation where they know our mid-range phones, the competition isn't that vigorous here in the United States. They know on a carrier deal you're going to get it cheap. Overseas, they have a lot more to compete with as far as mid-ranges are concerned. You do have all those imports that are they offer a lot on paper for X amount of dollars. So Samsung maybe thought they had to up their game for overseas in the mid-range and kind of leave us with what they left us with here in the United States. Overall, it's confusing. That's why I'm not going to review an A35. I feel like I've done it, right? I feel like it's so close to what I have already, and I don't like doing that. I don't like investing in another phone that feels kind of what I've got. I'm sure it's a good performer. Sure it's smooth. Sure the display is excellent, especially in the price range. Sure the build is nice. Sure that 6.6-inch display is nice to look at. It's probably a very good phone. No problem with that. I just have a problem with the price point. And it feels like they plucked a little bit from each of these devices and kind of married the three of them and came up with a phone. The only problem is the price point. $350, if you want to try to sell it as an upgrade to the A25, you got me. $400, when this exists for $450, when this exists for $325, when this exists on a carrier deal for right around $400, that's where it gets a little iffy, and I kind of get confused as to where the A35 falls in the Samsung lineup. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, have that Steve-licious day.